Chris Scianni's a fantastic guitar player. His band Danger Man had a top 20 hit with Chris's song Let's Make a Deal. Chris went on to play in Echo Brain with Jason Newsted of Metallica. Then in Huey and the New Yorkers with Huey Morgan of the Fun Loving Criminals. As the founding member of his side project, the Tangiers Blues Band, Scianni has played with the likes of Greg Allman, Tom Morello, Donald Fagen, Dave Grohl, Mike McCready, and many, many more. He's toured extensively, playing some of the world's greatest venues, such as the Preservation Hall in New Orleans, the Royal Albert Hall in London, and Madison Square Garden in his hometown, New York City. Recently, I had the good fortune to hang with my dear old pal Scianni here at the Treehouse. So tell us, Chris, a little bit about, how you got started in all this, like the first bands you were in.
Well, I started playing piano and was not that into it. And so I remember seeing somebody playing a guitar, an electric guitar, in like third or fourth grade. Gravitated towards that, and there was something about it. And I had also had a babysitter who had an acoustic guitar who showed me the 3 chords in Sympathy for the Devil.
That's all you need.
Which I still overuse those chords today.
Yeah, and I remember the Clash seeped into your
into
your lexicon there as well.
They did, because it actually once I got the guitar, which I bought on my own without my parents' knowledge, just ran off, got an electric guitar, distortion box, amp. Then I realized that I could actually play a lot of the Clash songs. Right. So it was became like a hand-in-hand thing. Like I liked the music and I could also play it.
Yeah. And then so what happened as things developed? I remember Big Blue Squid was going at the same time as my band, the Hatters, and we were playing together a lot. And then you still play with some of those guys, right?
Yeah, well, Pete Levin is a guy that's been in and out of 100 bands with me. He continued to play with Amy Helm, who was the singer in Big Blue Squid for a while, but then they did another band in New York.
Right.
Then when I got my deal with Sony, we hired Pete to play keyboards. Pete's been a founding member of the Tangiers Blues Band, so he's been in that, with me the whole way.
The Tangiers Blues Band was sort of somehow the natural evolution of all this. Basically, you guys...
We just started a band while we all had record deals. It was sort of like, let's have a side project. And it's got to be a blues band. And I sort of was the ringleader on that and recruited my buddies. And that was when I met Danny.
Yeah. And how did you meet Danny?
So
Danny
we got sent a bunch of books as Danger Man. We were in Atlanta recording with Brendan OBrien. They sent a bunch of photographers' books. And we saw the old dirty bastard picture that Danny took, and we're like, I bet this guy is the shit, man. We got to talk to this dude.
That's awesome.
And a couple other Beastie Boys shots and Metallica shots, but it was really the old dirty bastard picture. We're like, we got to meet this guy. And our first meeting was really nothing more than a blues jam. We had a couple of blues records up on the wall, and we started talking, and then he pulled out some harmonicas. We jammed, and then we called our manager, and he was like, how did it go? And we're like, oh yeah, we formed a blues band. And he's like, well, do you want to work with him? We're like, yeah, and that too.
And that too.
We love the guy.
So what about this thing with the Fun Lovin', or with Huey?
Yeah, Huey. We, again, just sort of hanging out all the time. We had been doing tracks. I think we started doing tracks around 2007. We do tracks at Pete Levin's studio. We do some stuff at my house. We do some stuff at his house. I would send some recordings out to Dave Borla on the West Coast. Then they'd get to Tim Latham. So, piecemeal over 2 or 3 years, we put together probably, 20, 30 songs. And then Huey got married and moved to England and said, don't worry, I'm going to hook it up. I said, okay, great, call us. And 5 years later he called. He's like, okay, we got a record deal and there's going to be a tour, and can you guys come over? And we ended up playing actually Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah,
that was pretty
awesome.
Sweet. Yeah. That was sweet. And it was with Ronnie Wood and Mick Taylor, so obviously 2 of my favorites.
Yeah, that pretty much tops it right there. So basically, being a blues band, you get this opportunity to be kind of the house band for all these guys coming in. And so, I've seen, for instance, recently we were doing a show in New York where you had Dave Grohl and Perry Farrell sitting in with you guys. And
having Danny in the band and as a friend, it's always exciting because you never know. So, because it was obviously, this was a big event for Danny, and it's a celebration of his book and 25 years of photography. We knew a lot of people were going to come down, but we didn't know what songs we were necessarily going to play, and then we got a few surprises. So we're on stage prepared for X, Y, and Z to happen, and then all of a sudden Zach Brown just walks on stage and goes, "All right, you guys know Use Me, let's go." And luckily I happened to know it. Yeah. So I start, key of E, I start playing the riff, and obviously whoever was in on it just started playing, and then Zach Brown singing. And then we knew that actually, Dave Grohl and Taylor had come down before we went on and said, "Whatever you guys want, just call us up." And then all of a sudden Dave Grohl standing next to me going, "All right, what are we doing?" And so I showed him the little riff, and obviously, he didn't have any problems, playing along with it.
These days, you have, people are a little afraid of kind of a loose jam. Mm-hmm. They're afraid to kind of go to a place where things may or may not happen.
Right, there could be a train wreck. And believe me, sometimes there are, but that's part of the fun too.
I think so too. Yeah. One thing I remember there was a band called Echo Brain, right, for a little while. How did that come about?
I had actually become friendly with the drummer from Metallica, Lars Ulrich, in the early 90s. And he had introduced me to his bass player, Jason, because Jason loved to jam, loved to play, and Lars knew that so did I. So he said, "You guys should start, jamming or whatever, hang out." And we started playing together. In the 90s, when they recorded Load in New York, Jason rented a rehearsal room at the same spot that we used to rehearse at, which was Vinny's over on the west side, in the sketchy part of town at that time. And he ended up leaving Metallica and putting out a record. And I heard it, he sent me a copy. I said, "Man, this is great, congratulations, it sounds so awesome." And on that phone call, I said, "Oh yeah, and by the way, we're planning on doing some shows and we need another guitar player. Would you be interested?" Well, we did a couple shows in San Francisco, and then we ended up doing a whole tour in 2002, which was just amazing. It was really a lot of fun, and I learned a lot playing with Jason, just about putting on a show, and each song sort of having an event. And sort of you really learn about the performance and the structure of a whole night, and that each song should have something.
That's a very interesting
going
approach. On. Is that something that you take with you now? Do you feel like
yeah, I do.
That with you?
I do. I mean, and it could be just something so for example, with Echo Brain, it would be each song for me there would be something different guitar-wise, whether it was a different guitar or a different effect. So now when we play, I try to think, okay, this song will play in open tuning, the next one I'll play slide on, the next one will be standard tuning, and
I think that's really smart, because mixing up tone and changing guitars, it often it's done and it seems to me like it's just a showpiece for somebody who's got some endorsement somewhere. But I think it can really it can imbue a show with a little more flavor and variety.
One of the biggest moments for me was working with Brendan OBrien and sort of getting over the songwriting hump. When we came to Brendan, we were writing what I thought were really good songs, but they weren't finished. We really had a tough time writing the C section or writing the bridge or having the bridge make sense, and sort of the guitar player, blues guy, old school, Chris would just say, "Okay, well, let's just do a verse and put a solo over it," which works maybe on a couple of songs a record, but after it becomes the thing, then it's very predictable. When we got down to Atlanta, Brendan just sort of, hipped us to the fact of you don't have to write everything all at once. You can sort of write your song, have you write in. He just said, leave the bridge open, leave 16, leave 4 bars or 16 bars open. Just leave a little space for where the bridge is and come back to it later. Think of it as a separate entity. And then all of a sudden, thinking of it that way, what started happening is we would just leave holes, and then, okay, today's bridge day, and we'd go back and sort of attack a couple songs at a time with a totally fresh palette. And then all of a sudden, injecting maybe with different tones. Like that was another thing. He said, all right, you know, when we do the bridge, you know, you were using the 335 on the song. Now we're going to use a Vox, or we're going to use an acoustic, and we're going to run it through this little ratty amp. And so all of a sudden, this section would have its own life to it. That was a big part for us.
You can take what's sort of your weakness in your process and make it your strength.
Yes. All right, well, one of them has got to be the Telecaster, just in general. The first guitar that I ever owned was a Telecaster, so that's number one. And then I think number two, back to the songwriting, would be just any type of recording gear. So the first recording gear would be the Tascam cassette 4-track, and that grew into the Tascam 8-track, which then grew into a Tascam 16-track, 1-inch, and then eventually 2-inch tape, and now Pro Tools, but just the ability.
You never skipped the ADAT? You never had the ADAT?
We protested ADATs. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the story is this. We went to Sam Ash or Manny's or one of the 48th Street stores with sort of the mentality of whatever the guys recommend, we're getting the opposite. So we sort of posed the question, what would you use, ADAT or analog tape? And the guy was like, I use ADATs. And we're like, perfect, give us the tape. And so that was, we skipped the ADATs, yeah. Alright, let's start with drums, because I was thinking about this earlier. So Elvin Jones and John Bonham. And they can switch off, they can play together, whatever, but both those guys.
Together, that'd be something.
Bass, Ray Brown or Barry Oakley.
Alright.
And then, wow, guitar, Hendrix, Dwayne Allman, Johnny Winter at this point. Together, fuck it. I mean, we're going for it. And then who would play keys? Well, I like to have Bobby Keys as the horn section. Bobby Keys and Jim Price, probably my favorite rock and roll horn section. Well, I mean, I love Greg Allman. I mean, he's one of my all-time favorites. Singing, playing, everything. You know, and Jimmy Page and Keith, if they were around, that'd be great too. So there's so many. Yeah, man, it's a big fan. It's a big fan.
All right.
Indeed.
Well, this has been a great time. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Happy with you.
Indeed.
And, we'll catch you next time on Minor Minutes.